Alright, so we keep hearing about these plea deals. We keep hearing the walls are closing in, you know, it's like 2018 all over again. Oh, it's over this time. This is the final straw. Donald Trump can't come back from this. All of his, quote, accomplices are turning on him, taking plea deals, pointing the finger at Trump, spilling the beans, so to speak. The only issue is, Donald Trump's accomplices, as leftists describe them, aren't really doing anything of what the left is suggesting. The suggestion is that all of these plea deals that they're taking, so far we've had Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, and Mr. Chesbro in Fani Willis's ridiculous RICO case. The narrative was that they're pointing the finger at Donald Trump. Well, as we saw last week, that isn't the case at all. Mr. Chesbro hasn't implicated Donald Trump at all, and I'm not even sure if he's going to testify, but he has said that he doesn't think his testimony is going to be helpful to the state's prosecution. Jenna Ellis's plea deal and the letter that she wrote as she sobbed in the courtroom, kind of a nothing burger, to be honest. And now this week we have an addition, supposedly the biggest update in the case. Donald Trump is definitely done this time. Fani Willis is an American hero, according to the leftoids, because Mark Meadows has now turned on Donald Trump in exchange for immunity. Well, apparently, that's not the case at all. It's more misinformation and more copium. The Trump is done, the walls are closing in. It's the beginning of the end. Trump narrative falls apart for the quadrillionth time. Let me show you guys what's going on. Leftoids not exactly happy about this. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's read the headline. It pretty much tells the story. Mark Meadows denies flipping on Trump for immunity deal in Georgia RICO case. Former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has denied claims that he, quote, flipped on Trump and agreed to testify in exchange for immunity before special counsel Jack Smith's team. Meadows' attorney George Terwilliger told ABC that their story was largely inaccurate. People will have to judge for themselves the decision to run it anyway. The claim came from a Tuesday ABC News report in which anonymous sources said Meadows had informed Smith's team that he, quote, repeatedly told Trump in the weeks after the 2020 presidential election that the allegations of significant issues coming to them were baseless. Meadows also allegedly told federal investigators Trump was being, quote, dishonest with the public when he said he won the election hours after the polls closed. Obviously, we didn't win, a source quoted Meadows as telling Smith's team. ABC News states that in Meadows' book, we'll have to be a little vague here, he stated that the election was sketchy, but reportedly told investigators privately that he has not seen any evidence related to said election. The outlet reported that the immunity order states the information Meadows provided to a grand jury earlier in the year could not be used against him in a federal prosecution. In a June report from The Independent, the outlet stated that the immunity deal would include Meadows pleading guilty to a number of unspecified federal crimes, but Terwilliger told the outlet at the time that the idea was, quote, complete BS. In a pair of Truth Social posts on Tuesday following the ABC News report, Trump said that Mark Meadows had never told him that the allegations were incorrect, and that he certainly didn't say that in his book. So there's obviously conflicting reports, conflicting statements here. You know, Democrats are trying to pretend as if this is a smoking gun. Well, Mark Meadows told Trump a thing, or he's saying now that he told Trump a thing, therefore, Trump is guilty of fomenting, organizing an insurrection, and guilty of a fraudulent elector scheme in Georgia. But I don't know how you get to that conclusion at all, to be honest. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. And obviously, it's hearsay. It's he say, she say, which I don't think is enough to seal the deal in court, especially considering this thing that Mark Meadows supposedly said that's this big bombshell evidence that's going to give him immunity and take Donald Trump down. Well, he said the literal exact opposite in his book. So who's to be trusted? The guy who obviously is lying and is speaking out of two sides of his mouth? That's not a credible witness with damning evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Maybe not as bad of a witness, but kind of similar in a way to Michael Cohen. He's a known fraudster, a known liar, a convicted perjurer, not exactly the strongest of evidence. If Mark Meadows starts switching his tune, if anything, it feeds into Trump's defense, into his argument, that at the time, his staff was feeding him with information, and that's how he was making his judgments at the time. Mark Meadows literally wrote a book suggesting that that's exactly what he was doing and what he believed, and now he's trying to switch it up and pretend as if the entire time he was warning Donald Trump that there was no information. He was doubting the narrative and pointing out that there was, quote, no evidence. I'm just not buying it. Seems like another phony media report with another, again, anonymous source, now Mark Meadows, seems to be denying the majority of ABC's news report. It's another leftist narrative that they've built up to be this big, massive bombshell thing, but in the end it seems like yet again another complete nothing burger. You know, relating to Jack Smith's January 6 case, I'm still waiting for leftists to provide actual material evidence, legitimate proof, or credible witness testimony suggesting that Donald Trump organized a plot to overthrow the US government. Mark Meadows saying, well, I told the president that he was wrong about his opinion doesn't make Donald Trump guilty of insurrection or attempting to violently overthrow the US federal government. That is a ridiculous claim. Again, it's a nothing burger, just like the Jenna Ellis thing was a freaking nothing burger. Leftists all over Twitter posting this video.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to address the court. As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people.
It's over for Donald Trump, they say. I'm again sitting here asking myself the question, how? Why? What do you mean? What about her statement was damning? Is it the idea that she was crying? Yeah, obviously she was crying. Joe Biden's weaponized DOJ is literally trying to ruin her life. They threw the freaking kitchen sink at her, and so obviously she's gonna plead for forgiveness, take a plea deal, try to get the whole thing over with, accept responsibility and attempt to move on with her life. She's obviously gonna feign remorse while in the courtroom as she attempts to preserve her freaking freedom. None of what Jenna Ellis is doing is surprising, especially considering how much of a flip-flopper she is, how much of a career opportunist she is. But again, nothing she said, no testimony, nothing in her letter is suggesting that Donald Trump is guilty of anything. It seems just like Mr. Chesbrough, she's taking responsibility for her own actions, her own involvement, what she and her colleagues did, and not really feeding into this larger narrative that Donald Trump was the one orchestrating it all, pulling all the strings as he attempted to overthrow the US government once again. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that. The Jenna Ellis courtroom moment, nothing really there, no real there. Mark Meadows, suggesting that he has in fact not flipped on Donald Trump and that the reporting has been largely fake news. Mr. Chesbrough claimed that his testimony will most likely not be helpful to the state's prosecution, took responsibility for his own actions, relating to falsifying documents, was not charged with a RICO charge, just the falsifying of documents, and has vehemently denied Donald Trump's involvement. And even his involvement in the whole fake elector scheme, even though supposedly Politico reported that he was the architect of Trump's fake elector scheme. The only person who remains a little bit of a mystery is Sidney Powell, but again, I'm not really sure there's any real substance there. It's possible there's something, you know, I'm not going to deny the possibility of really anything, but mostly what I'm seeing, mostly what I'm perceiving is a lot of hype, a lot of noise, a lot of victory laps, a lot of cheering from the leftist activist base, a lot of fake news leftist journalists writing those beautiful clickbait headlines that generate them so much revenue. Ooh, Trump is done this time, over and over again. But based on my analysis, that doesn't seem to be the case whatsoever. Another key witness, nothing burger. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.